muted if you're not speaking. I'll recognize Kayla Waltemeyer, who works with me at the Institute for Water Resources, who is controlling the webinar itself, as well as the slides that you see going past us. We're going to start off with a presentation by Mr. Vance Stewart, whose normal job is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Management and Budget in the Office of Civil Works. But he's currently serving as the acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army as the U.S. government goes through its transition of positions and leadership jobs. He previously served as the Appropriations Director of the Army Budget Office and in his first civilian assignment served as Deputy Chief of Staff for the U.S. Army Military District of Washington. He has more than 27 years of active duty service as an Army Corps of Engineer officer and as a comptroller, retiring from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Holds a Master of Business from Colorado State, a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Iowa, and a graduate of the Senior Service College for the U.S. Army. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Stewart.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, good morning to those in the Western time zone, and a special good evening to our guest, the Piank President, Mr. Francisco Esteban Leffler, calling in from Spain. Glad to have everybody here today. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to members of the PIANC USA Board of Commissioners, other PIANC USA members, and all those other interested parties that have maritime and navigation stakes. Appreciate having you all here today. The importance of moving maritime cargo in a timely, safe, and cost-effective manner continues to grow as the world's economy expands and the world is ever more connected. Even during a global pandemic, maritime commerce continues to provide vital goods and services and promote essential economic trade around the world. As maritime commerce is inherently international, the existence of an international organization to provide a forum for discussion of maritime and inland navigation issues at both the policy and technical levels is essential. PIANC uniquely fills this role, and the United States has benefited from this association since becoming a member in 1902. Specific to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the ability of USA subject matter experts to find and collaborate with peers from other countries throughout the PIANC technical program has proven significant. Similarly, our private industry PIANC USA members have equally benefited from this association. Such collaborations advance our understanding across a wide range of topics, and it is done so in a cost-effective and collaborative manner. In support of technical understanding advancement, I want to highlight an initiative to create a collaboration of maritime professionals within North, Central, and South America. The PIANC Americas initiative seeks to identify participants and find areas of common interest within the Americas. The connection of regional partners to address technical issues and advance collaboration is both interesting and important. I especially acknowledge the contributions by Dr. Calvin Creech from the Corps of Engineers Mobile District, who is taking a lead in this effort. As I won't be able to, I extend my thanks to the members of the U.S. Section Board of Commissioners who donate their time, talents, and energy to enable PIANC USA to better serve our nation. These professionals enable the participation of public sector and private industry with PIANC throughout the existence of this U.S. section. Although I won't be able to join you, I understand at the end of the meeting, as Joe mentioned, we will recognize individuals who on behalf of PIANC USA contributed materially to the completion of PIANC technical reports and similar publications. I congratulate you and thank you for your time and efforts. I'd also like to take some time here in the next few minutes and share with you what's going on within the Office of the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works here at the Pentagon, although we're working remotely most of the time, as many of you are. So the big news this week was we had the arrival of the first of our two political appointees, Mr. Jamie Pinkham, has arrived, and he has been appointed by President Biden as the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary. And until we get a nominee for our Assistant Secretary position, he has been designated the Acting Assistant Secretary by our acting Secretary of the Army. So we're very happy to have him on board and look forward to getting him to participate in future Piank events. The next item that we're working on is the myriad of presidential executive orders and other memorandum that have been issued, and many of those in the civil works realm center on three of the president's priorities: climate change, environmental justice, and tribal matters. These are all important priorities, and we're working very quickly and very diligently to read through and understand these executive orders. As many of you know, they involve complex regulations and other statutes, and we've got to take the time to thoroughly unwind the current pieces of legislation and regulation, and understand how to fit the president's priorities into that and make changes in the appropriate manners. So we're very glad to have distinct guidance from the president, and we're moving out along with the Corps smartly. Second, in the policy realm, the second big event we have going on is the implementation of our authorization bill, or the Water Resources Development Act of 2020, known as WRDA. We've recently held a series of 5 listening sessions where we had between 100 and 150 people across the nation dial in and participate, and we gained many insights and other experiences from stakeholders that we need to incorporate into the implementation guidance that we're going to be writing here this summer for release sometime in August. So if you didn't get a chance to attend those listening sessions, I know on the USACE website they have them posted, I believe, that you can view them. But the public comment period is also open until the 7th of May. So if you have an issue about WRDA 2020 that you'd like us to review and understand more fully, please take the opportunity to send us your written comments, or I believe you can send it electronically. The next big event we have, of course, is the pending fiscal year 22 budget. We're eagerly awaiting a date from the president to release that to the Congress. We expect that to happen here within the next couple of weeks. And we look forward to submitting our proposal for the Civil Works appropriation over to Congress for the
I think his audio may have gotten disconnected. It looks like he's reconnecting.
Welcome to the virtual world, everyone. Not a problem, sir. And you can dial in too. Kayla, do you have access to the telephone number? I'm looking for it.
Yes, let me see here. I will copy it in the chat. I think he's not able to reconnect, having some technical difficulties.
Okay. Give it another minute here.
Oh, he might be one of these call-in numbers. Okay.
Okay, am I back?
Yes, sure. You are.
Okay, very sorry for that. Thank you for your patience. I don't know what happened. The call dropped me. Okay. I think I was talking about the budget. Is that correct? When I dropped off?
Yes, sir. You were talking about budget.
Okay. We're eagerly waiting to send our budget over to the Congress, and we look forward to working with them over the summer as they deliberate and hopefully get a bill passed on time. So we hope spring's eternal in Washington. The last item I wanted to talk about was many of you have interest in the Inland Waterways User Board, and so I wanted to give you an update on that. As you may know, the Secretary of Defense put a hold on all DoD commissions and boards and is conducting a zero-based review of those to determine which ones need to continue. So the IWAB, of course, was one of those, and so we've submitted we had to submit a packet of justification for why we feel the board should continue, and we've done that. And Major General Graham, the board president, and USACE DCG is appearing before that DoD panel here later next week, and we hope that we'll get a favorable consideration and get the board reinstated. And then we will, if that's the case, then we will go ahead and start working through the procedures to add board members back in. I'm not sure what the rules will be for that, whether we can reappoint previous board members or new ones or some kind of mix. So more to follow, but the good news is we are going before the review next week, and hope to get that get a go ahead from that by the end of the month. So again, I'm very sorry for the technical difficulties here. I still have a couple of minutes left, so I'd be delighted to take a couple of questions there if anybody had any.
You can type them in the chat box or just unmute yourself. And
if you would like to unmute, just raise your hand, and then I can give you the privilege to unmute yourself. Or if you send me a chat, I can unmute you.
Mr. Stewart, this is Jim Walker with AAPA. I was wondering about the level of engagement that the ASA's office might have had with the American Jobs Plan that's being developed by the administration. We're hearing a lot from DOT, and just was curious about the Corps' participation in that development.
So we're waiting for the administration to bring us in on those deliberations, and we look forward to being able to advance the needs of the nation for inland waterways and our other efforts. So not much to report at this point.
Well, let me just ask a general question then, sir. What is it that takes up most of your day? Sitting where you are, overseeing this multi-billion-dollar organization, what is the primary focus?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm. Some days it feels like I'm a firefighter. You know, I come to my desk in the morning and I wait for the alarm bell to ring, and we go off in that direction and douse the fire. But it really is we really do work simultaneous. You know, we've got the projects that have been funded by the Congress, and so there's always execution challenges that need to be dealt with, and then of course we're preparing the budget, as I mentioned. So we've got we've got to nail that down with the Office of Management and Budget, and we have back and forth with them on the projects in that request. And then of course we've got future planning for the next cycle. So you know, right now the Corps of Engineers is already building their fiscal year 23 budget request. So really, when somebody calls me and says I have a problem, the first thing I ask them is, well, what fiscal year are we talking about? Because I really have to put into context what they want to get after or what they have to solve. So it's pretty exciting and keeps you on your toes. So no 2 days are the same, I guess.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I knew you had to leave at 20 minutes past the hour for another meeting. I want to thank you for your time today and for sharing your insights. They've been most helpful. So with that, sir, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Joe, and I hope you all have a productive meeting today. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll now transition to our keynote speaker for today. We have Mr. Francisco Esteban Loeffler, who is the president of the World Association for Waterborne Transport Infrastructure, more commonly known as PIANK. Francisco was born in Madrid, Spain, has a master's in civil engineering from the Madrid Polytechnical University, a master's in construction and electrical engineering from the Army Superior Polytechnical School. He served in the Directorate of Infrastructure for military defense from 1980 to 93, and then he joined the Puerto del Estado State Ports Ministry of Development as head of development of projects from 93 to 94. And from there, he went into a career in construction, FCC Construction, where he held several positions. He began his PIANK activities in 1999 and has been the president of PIANK since 2019. With that, sir, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. I am very honored to have the opportunity to address the PIANK National Section of the United States of America's Annual Meeting, and my appreciation to Mr. Vance Stewart, to Major General William Graham, the Board of PIANK US, and especially those directly responsible for organizing this event, and least but not least, all the colleagues from the US section with which I have shared the PIANK activities and PIANK committees and commissions. Next, please. Okay, thank you. First, I will go for a general overview of PIANK, mainly addressed for those less familiar with our international activities. No, I think a bit too much. Yes. And then I will go to the direction forward. First, I will look the direction forward inside PIANK, what means the PIANK after the pandemics, and the challenges and the opportunities. I prefer to see opportunities and challenges for the future of our association. Also, the direction forward, looking for what is around PIANK, the challenges from waterborne transport infrastructure and recreation navigation infrastructure we have to face in the future, and will give us a very interesting field for our meetings on our forthcoming working groups. I will finish with two very short notes. One is about the questions that in society have arisen after the grounding at the Suez Canal. And finally, I will quote an anniversary that's close in 2022. Next, please. Well, what's PIANK? PIANK really is a forum where professionals meet. The experts join in PIANK, and they work together and provide guidance for waterborne transport infrastructure, searching for cost effectiveness, reliability, and sustainability. That's coping with the main challenges of our society. PIANK was set up in 1885, so it's really an old organization, but doesn't feel old. It's a long-standing organization, the oldest in our field, and gave room to other other organizations from the field of engineering. Next, please. Yes, okay, thank you. PIANK wants to remain obviously being the source of reference for our expert guidance. The expert guidance that PIANK provides is performed through international commissions and the working groups that supervise by those commissions prepare high-quality technical reports that are the reference for our organization worldwide. Not only providing guidance, also keeping the connection amongst the international waterway transport community, keep the professionals connected, networking for worldwide specialists by our main events. Our main event is the 4-year European World Congress that takes place every 4 years, although with the pandemics we will have some delay in this situation. And the last one that was hosted by the United States section was in San Francisco in 2014. Every 4 years we have also the cooperation conference, the COPEDEC, dedicated to countries in transitions. And every 2 years we have the Smart Rivers Conference, that is an event that is the only worldwide event dedicated to inland waterway infrastructure. And also we support strongly the young professionals and countries in transition. Next, please. This is a picture of PIANK in the world. We have at present 43 qualified members, of which 27 have developed a full national section, plenty of activity. That's the difference between a qualified member or a qualified member with a national section. In the American continent, we see that we have new qualified members that are joining us. The last one was Ecuador. And our challenge at present is to extend this number of qualified members in the continent, and also those countries that have undertaken being a qualified member, just provide them with field for activity in order they can become a full operating national section. Since a few months ago, we welcome back Canada. So the national section stalled a little bit, but now it's again active and fully growing with us in PIANK. PIANK has in the world more than 1,800 individual members and about 500 corporate members. Among them, port authorities, chambers of commerce, universities, and corporations from the private sector and the public bodies. Next, please. Well, we have members in many more countries than we have qualified members or national sections, and that's our seed. These members are the people we have to take care in order to go ahead and extend our organization. Yes, please. PIANK has a very special quality in platinum partners. Platinum partners take a special liaison with PIANK. They of course pay a high fee for membership, but they participate a lot and they help our organization in issues. Our platinum partners are present at dredging companies, one port authority, that's the Port of Rotterdam, fender manufacturers of steel fibers, and also some construction companies. Next, please. This is what can be the organization chart of PIANK. The General Assembly is the main decision body in PIANK for worldwide, followed by the Council. And the Executive Committee reports to the Council and to the General Assembly. It's composed of the President, the 4 Vice Presidents. The Vice Presidents have in general a geographic role. There's one Vice President for the Americas, other Vice President for Europe and Africa, and other for Asia and Pacific. And the 4th one is free. It can be from any of the regions. It's not fixed. It depends a lot on the challenges we're having at the moment. The Secretary General, Herr van Kappelen, is an essential piece in PIANK working, heading our team at HQ, and also the National Secretary is responsible also with working with the national sections in order to achieve our best operations. And in the Executive Committee, we have the 8 chairs of the commissions. 4 of them the technical commissions. I think the representatives of the United States in the commission will report you later on the activities of the inland navigation, maritime, aviation, and environmental commissions. And we have 4 cross-cutting commissions Commission of Cooperation responsible for the liaison with countries in transition and PM development, Financial Commission that's extremely helpful taking the financial issues of PM, the Young Professional Commissions, that's one of the keys, or not of the future of PM, but of the real presence, and the Promotion Commission, that's the most recent one, dedicated to promotion of the association and marketing. That is one of the main tools for our future development. Next, please. What's coming in now? We have our General Assemblies, one meeting per year, is usually in May. In 2021, unfortunately, due to the pandemics, it will be virtual, although hosted by UK, because it was scheduled at Bristol, UK, and it will be in 2 days in order to provoke the less stress possible regarding time zones. The first day for delegates will be dedicated to the statutory issues and the decisions of the AEA, and the second day dedicated to technical presentations will, by the first time, being virtual, open to all PR members. So your national sections will inform you how to attend these presentations that will be coordinated by the UK as host. In 2022, we haven't yet decided where to go because of the uncertainty of the pandemic, but we hope this will become clearer, and by the end of the summer, we will have one national section offering to host this important meeting. 2023 will be at Oslo, Norway, and in 2024 will be joined with our World Congress in Cape Town in South Africa. The Copenhagen was scheduled for 2020 has to be postponed. At present, we expect it for 2022 at Manila in the Philippines, but we are not sure what's going to happen because the pandemic hit very severely in the Pacific, that area. And the Smart River Conference, next one will be in 2022. That's almost confirmed, or fully confirmed, really, at Nanjing in China. Next, please. Our special focus on the young professional is developed through the specific commission, WEDICOM, that has created a wonderful international network of young professionals. They share knowledge and facilitate contacts and are very active in many national sections. Many national sections have specific branches for the young professionals, and the young professionals have the opportunity to work with the commissions and to participate in working groups. Present, more than 100 young professionals are participating or have already participated in working groups. They have their presence at LinkedIn, and they are extremely active. They are now a very important part of the activity of the association. Next, please. Piank issues 3 awards. The PAP Evidence Award, that's an important award for young professionals, has 3 prizes and it's awarded every year. The MIDA Award, that's related to Marina design and Marina operation, that's handled by RECOM. And the Working with Nature Award, that's led by MBCOM, that's awarded every 4 years at the World Congress. Next, please. Well, working with nature is part of the core of PIANC philosophy regarding environment. It is intended to overcome the standard approach where the definition of the navigation problem starts, technical solutions are preliminary design, and then the environmental phase starts with a solution almost chosen, and then the process of environmental impact assessment where the stakeholders participate. And the mitigation measures, control measures are fixed, and then the environmental permitting stage is performed before construction, to an approach that's more holistic, starting from the very beginning, analyzing the navigation problem, and putting the knowledge of the environmental factors from the beginning, taking the stakeholder involvement from the very beginning so we can have their input, and they can have the knowledge of what's happening and what are the problems we have to face. And this leads to the development of win-win solutions that will facilitate all further steps of design, permitting, and construction. It's a key of the philosophy of PIANC at present handling nature. Okay, that's perfect. Our technical report is maybe is the more visible product that PIANC has. Being a PIANC member, you have the possibility of participating in these commissions. Experts can participate, and young professionals, obviously they are not advanced experts always, but can go to the commissions and work together with the specialists. All these technical reports are free for PIANC members. Next, please. Well, every year we publish our yearbook. Next. There are also 6 e-newsletters. Next. And PIANC is also present at the social media. Next, please. Well, we work with, not alone, with sister associations. We work with official bodies as the United Nations Environmental Programme, IMO, Dredging organizations, and we have memorandums of understanding with 15 sister associations, and with many of them we produce joint reports, as the APH, IALA, and ICLAC. ICLAC is a very interesting creation of PIANC. We have produced recently the report on the proposal for the classification of inland waterways in South America. Will be translated into Spanish and will be one of the vectors of penetration of PIANC in all the South American continent. Next, please. Well, these are the 7 reasons, but I think I have summarized them. Next slide, please. Well, I would look now at the direction forward inside PIANC. First, with the picture of what did the pandemics bring to us. We had, as almost many activities, also navigation and port activities. The first impact was confinement and travel limitations, means stop movement and suspension of face-to-face events, what had an immediate impact on networking. That's key for us. We have to adapt our management processes. Online meetings for the committees. For instance, in the executive committee, we have many more meetings, 5 a year instead of 3, but shorter, obviously. Also, we had to tackle with the statutory and regulatory issues 2020, not only from our statutes, but also from the Belgian law to which PIANC has to fulfill. Then we had to improvise a General Assembly by email for urgent approval matters in first half of 2020, and later we could organize a video conference with the Joint Council, an extraordinary General Assembly in October, in order to fulfill all the other topics that we solve usually at the management bodies. Joining that with a cautious and thoughtful management of our finances, the final result, I think, has been extremely good, and PIANC has not had important losses of income and has controlled the expenses. Thank you. Next. Well, that has been obviously a remarkable effort by HQ personnel, by the commissions, and by the working groups. And I warmly thank all the members for their efforts, because it's very important in keeping PIANC sailing ahead. Webinars and remote meetings have increased a lot, and there have been a larger number of successful regional events. I think it has fostered a lot these kind of regional events that are extremely good, and being also virtual, they reach much more than the region itself. They connect even continents. And the different evolution in time of the effect of the pandemics and of the restrictions brought a very interesting and successful experience at Australia of a hybrid event, the PIANC Asia Pacific Conference 2020 in December, that was hosted physically at Fremantle in Australia, and many of us participated by video conference. I have to conclude that regarding PIANC has adapted to the challenges with resilience, with adaptation and resilience that are our main concepts when we deal about climate change. So PIANC has fulfilled its own principles here. And then the strategies of the future have had to be adapted to the new situation, but our objective remains just the same. Please, next. Well, what happens for the future? For the future, I think more opportunities and challenges arise. PIANC means networking, so face-to-face events will stay, are very relevant for us. For us, the PIANC family is very important to meet ourselves at least once a year at the General Assembly, and many more of us at our major events. However, we will have more virtual events. Virtual events will allow us to reach more members and increase our membership because people will feel Piank closer at the laptops. We'll also foster participation in events and working groups, because as people not being able to travel long will not require expensive authorizations from their employers. So it will facilitate remote participation, and maybe working groups can be supported by members in the distance in the future. This will increase the diffusion of the regional events and will allow to store webinars online, that making a larger repository of knowledge in Piank accessible to our members. And of course, some of our conferences will be moved partially to virtual or hybrid. I'm thinking specifically in the cooperative conferences that are addressed to countries in transitions where the expenses of participating in the conference mean a very specific burden. People, mainly young people at the university or students, that we can facilitate much better their participation through internet than granting travel to the places where the events will take place. Next, please. Well, and these are our working lines now. Development of tools to support Piank online events. We are working on that at HQ, trying that the physical presence of personnel from HQ is not needed because of the problem at the time zones. The Promotion Commission is analyzing our membership now and our target membership. What kind of services can we provide our individual and corporate members in order to make them take more value for the fees they pay for being members of Piank? We have started to work also at the membership software issue, trying to improve our way of handling our data on members and also the relations of HQ with the national sections. We have asked the commissions to develop webinars. We have placed the objective to all 4 technical commissions to have at least one webinar in 2021 that can be broadcasted to all Piank members. And there have been some very interesting experiences of joint activities of different national sections. Recently, there was a joint webinar from the Argentinian section together with the Spanish one, and that was very successful, had attendance from both continents. I think that's a good way ahead, when the national sections can meet each other and network together by the internet. So there are more opportunities and challenges, really. And of course, we will redesign, and we were working in the concept of redesigning some Piank events. Next, please. Well, what happens with the field where we act, the waterborne transport infrastructure, recreation navigation infrastructure, where our commissions choose the topics for forthcoming working groups and for discussion. First, we have to talk about COVID-19. COVID-19 has been a high impact and low probability event. So that means that's within our language. It's similar to storms, similar to other, has similarities with other natural catastrophes that we used to handle in our activity. Has had a sudden impact on port operations, very, very fast, with impacts in governance, impact in operation, and the infrastructure management had to adapt very fast to a completely new scenario that was defined by a strong impact on all the elements of the supply chain, including a lot of stress on stockage capabilities, container yards, warehouses, etc., that suffered the shock of the movements at the logistic lines that connected ports and waterways, other connections, both seawards and landwards. Another feature of this crisis is that it has had a complex evolution in space and time scales. There's a multiple interaction. If we think in a seaport, the seaport is affected what's happening in the direct hinterland, surrounding cities with the demand of essential supplies, with the alterations in the land links, roads, railways, inland navigation that are subject also to border problems and restrictions, and also has influence of the situation of the pandemics at all the maritime links they have in the world. So this means that the history of COVID has been different from port to port and different from moment to moment. Can somehow guess some common features, but it is quite interesting. Next, please. Well, when we talk about infrastructure, that's our main field, we always have to go back to the main features of infrastructure. Infrastructure takes a long term for obtention. Since the very beginning, from the planning stage, design, permitting, contracting, building, commissioning. This means that the decisions that we are taking today will be a reality maybe in 5, 10 or more years if the project is so complex to have a long permitting process. Then life cycle assessment is an essential tool for us. Life cycle assessment that has to be linked to uncertainty. That's the main definition of our work. Changes in operation and governance, maybe changes in the long term, but also sudden changes due to natural catastrophes, pandemics, or other low probability events. Changing climate adaptation, that's also extremely relevant, and our concept that's already announced in our declaration on climate change, we recommend going for a really an incremental funding. We cannot look at what is scheduled to happen, we expect to happen in 50 years, because the uncertainty is very, very large at that scale. We have the idea of our infrastructure must be adaptable to more accurate forecast of what will happen, and avoiding just the mobilization of investment at a very early stage. Fulfill always sustainability requirements and cope with potential uncertainties in demand and in the logistic connections. So we must take a holistic view of our activity. Next, please. Then, in our usual picture of hazards that rule the design of infrastructure, inland waterways, seaports, inland ports, recreation, navigation, among the hazards, we have a new topic for the pandemics to look to the future. It's one more of the hazards we have to consider in our management of uncertainty. Next, please. Of course, other issues that we have to consider are natural disasters and extreme events. We have to realize that every day more in many locations, the extreme value distribution of these events is not stationary, it's evolving, and we have to adapt to new circumstances. We have to plan also an infrastructure for recovery after disasters. There will be in May a very interesting webinar at Japan for Asia regarding natural disasters, tsunami, and all these catastrophes and recovery and contingency plans. And also, our infrastructure has to adapt to changes in operation and governance that come from this natural disaster and extreme events sometimes. We are in a process that, in my opinion, leads to a change in the design concept. In the past, we set to our standards design loads, design climates, design storms, and then we had a target safety level. And when that safety level was achieved, design was, everything was perfect. Now we need to think in resilience and answer the question, what does it happen beyond design conditions? What's the response of our elements farther than what we can expect today can happen? And we have to face also society. Social demand of reliability is very close to a zero probability of failure of the systems. But reality is that leads to an infinite cost. So we must somehow do some interpretation to society. The resilience assessment and retrofitting of existing infrastructure, a huge existing infrastructure must be tested facing what we expect now will come, related to climate change or related to natural disaster or extreme events. Next, please. Innovation is an excellent tool. Innovation in materials, in construction elements, in floating elements, artificial islands. We will have in the future many more tools. Risk analysis is also having a huge evolution for management of uncertainty. And also design tools are developing a lot due mainly to digitalization. That's an essential process. Next, please. Digitalization and contribution to smart ports and smart waterways is also a driver for us. Not only just for the digitalization of the management processes. We have the digital tool for instrumentation of the physical infrastructure that will provide us more accurate elements for design and life cycle management in the future. Adaptation of terminals for automation, provide physical support for all digital equipment, integrate digital navigation services such as river information services, edge navigation, etc. Facilitate the single window operations with the security posts and customs and all infrastructural elements that have a key role in operations. Connectivity of the port community, but not only of the port community, because the port is only one of the elements of the logistic chain. It's linked with the other transport modes and must be connected. And the other side of this coin is cybersecurity. That's now a really relevant topic on top of us, on top of PIANC. The Inland Navigation Commission is working a lot in this. Next, please. Well, our direction forward also has the environmental opportunities, the contribution to the green ports concept, contribution to energy transition by the use of renewable energy sources, onshore power supply to boats in order to avoid emission in ports. And that means that in our infrastructure planning, we need land available because renewables are used to be intensive in the use of land. We must develop infrastructure suitable for raising green funding, integrating ecosystem services in the concept, based on nature-based solutions, the working with nature concept of PIANC and the engineering with nature concept in the United States, the group of engineers minimizing impact of natural environment and going through this decarbonization, new fuels, etc. Next, please. We also have to take into consideration the potential variation in the logistics of the hinterland, intermodality, the reliability of the port logistics, the impact on the hinterland, sometimes by bottlenecks in the transportation and maybe contamination, port city operations that are the key of the dialogue in the waterfront between the city and the port, and finally, take into consideration the potential impact of the pandemics on the logistic change. Will part of the just-in-time logistics will be reconsidered in the future? Relocation and strengthening of supply chains will take place too. These are potential changes that are suitable for discussion within PIANC. Next, please. Well, regarding the grounding at the Suez Canal that had a severe impact on logistics mainly in Europe, as in the United States, society in general have attended some webinars related to this topic. I have gone through the press, and there were many questions in society that we, as responsible for the planning and for the implementation of infrastructure, must translate into our language. I have heard some voices against the growth of ultra-large container ships. Well, the question is, should limitations other than economy, environment, and channel and port capacity limit the size of the ships? Will ships continue demanding waterway and port adaptation more and more? The fact is that 20 years ago we are hearing that container ship size has reached its limit, and new orders came with new and bigger ships. That's an interesting picture. Is society really aware that full safety and reliability does not exist? The voices with alteration of the logistic chain were unbelievable. Question is, how safe is enough safe for society? That's an interesting question. Can society withstand these low probability impacts on logistics from time to time? Or the same in other terms, how much extra money is society willing to pay for increasing reliability? And the dialogue to society is every day more important. We are not in an ivory tower. We have to explain what we do and what we serve to society. Next, please. And last, the 50th anniversary in 2022. In 1972, Major General Morris, at that time Director of Civil Works at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, proposed on behalf of the U.S. section that Piank takes the lead in recognizing the effects on the environment of dredging and disposal of dredged material. This idea was very fastly adopted by an expanded executive committee, and an international commission was formed that published in 1977 the first study on the environmental effects of dredging and disposal of dredged material. In those times, that was driven at the international level by signature of the London Convention in 72, the Oslo Convention in the same year, and the Paris Convention in 74, later merged with the Oslo one in the OSPAR Convention, and two more local, that Helsinki to the Baltic and Barcelona for the Mediterranean. So next year will be 50 years since Piank took the lead in analyzing environmental effects of dredging. That's something I wanted to put to the U.S. section as an interesting anniversary. And next, please, Pedro. Well, the summary is that we have very interesting challenges, very interesting opportunities, but we are in Piank. That means we are not alone for facing all these uncertainties. We have our colleagues, we can join them, we can join as experts and network for a successful and sustainable result for all the world. Then, final slide. I want to repeat my appreciation to the U.S. section and to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Well, sir, thank you very much. That was the most informative presentation. I know I got a lot out of it. I'm sure others did as well. We are running a little short on time, but there is one question in the chat box, and I'll forward that to you for your consideration. It's from Ellen. I'll pronounce it Jonik. I apologize, mispronounce it. She's with the California and San Francisco Bay Ports and Maritime Industry. And the question is about including the discussion of the Suez Canal incident. As a result of that incident, she's reminded of the participation in World Congress in Panama when we talked about the last deepening of the Panama Canal. The question, can you comment on the operability of the canal? I assume it's the Suez Canal, I'm not sure, not Panama. Since the deepening, it's the Panama Canal. Are ships moving in and out efficiently? Is the canal proving to be deep enough and wide enough for current ship sizes and so forth?
Well, I don't know if the question is related to the Panama or the Suez Canal.
It is, sir. It is, Panama.
Yeah, the Panama Canal. Well, I think the third set of locks and let's say the third lane of the Panama Canal is fulfilling as intended, what was intended in order to keep the ship size that was the one expected for the routes the canal is serving. As far as I know, regarding the operation, it's extremely effective for that traffic. I think it is safe enough. Navigation is good. There are not reported major incidents. And what I have heard in informal conversations is that if the issue of water resources is solved, maybe the fourth lane will not have the same size as the third one, and maybe go one step ahead. However, I think the ultra-large container ships are not intended for that kind of route. So I think we cannot say that it has fallen small at present.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you being with us. I know it's in the evening your time, but this was, as I said, a most informative conversation. So we would give you a round of applause, but I don't think you could hear it with everybody muted. But thank you.
Thank you very much. I will stay with you as much as possible.
I appreciate that, sir.
Stay until the end of the meeting because I'm very happy to share this time with the U.S. section.
Okay, great. Thank you. We now move into some updates from we call them the principal delegates to the commissions. Those are the principal delegates from the U.S. section. And I'll turn it over to each of them. They have about 15 minutes each to discuss what's going on. So we'll start off with Ron Heffron, who's Senior VP with Energy and Marine with COWI. So Ron, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to Francisco as well. That was very informative. If we could have the first slide up, please. Okay, so I just wanted to recognize our MARCOM USA team. I'm serving as the member, but Richard Stiles is our alternate, Chris Thomas is our YP, and Ed Backlund is our YP observer. So thank you for their efforts as well. First, I'm just going to run through some of our current activities that we're working on, and there's quite a few, but it's important to recognize that our primary mission is in producing these sorts of guidance documents for our industry. So we're really pleased that this report has just been published. It's Planning for Automation of Container Terminals. It's report number 208. And there's a webinar that's currently being planned to present this report to the USA membership. So watch for that. We recently did a webinar on navigation around offshore wind farms, and that was a good success. Some of you may have participated in it. Next. Some of the other recently published reports that I'll highlight. One is Report 145, which is the berthing velocity analysis of seagoing vessels. So this is a prelude to the new fender design manual that's currently in an active working group. So this is feeding information into that report. The next one is Report 185, which is ports on Greenfield sites, guidelines for site selection and master planning. Then we have Report 159, which is renewables and energy efficiency for maritime ports. Very timely document providing good guidance globally. So, and the last recently published report was a 2019 report, 184, Design Principles for Dry Bulk Marine Terminals. Next. Lots of active working groups, and so there's a lot going on. So it's really important for everyone to understand all of these various activities that we have underway. And I'll come back to this at the very end, but especially in the forming groups that I'll talk about, there are opportunities for participation still. We have certain members, but not all the groups have a primary, a backup, and a YP member from the USA. So if you see anything in here that really catches your interest, let me know, and we'll see if there might be an opportunity for participation. So Working Group 164 is upgrade of port terminals by increasing dredge depth. 167 is design of terminals for RoRo and RoPax vessels. 171 is ship handling simulation dedicated to channel and harbor design. Then we have 180, guidelines for protecting berthing structures from scour caused by ships. 185, site selection and planning for new ports and specialist marine terminals on Greenfield sites. 186, mooring of large ships at quay walls. 187, protection of undersea pipelines and cables in navigation areas. And 194 is quite an interesting one. It's a different twist for Piank. Rather than a technical guidance relating to design, this is a framework for early contractor involvement in infrastructure projects. We're all looking forward to this one coming out. Next. 199, health monitoring for port and waterway structures. Working Group 200 is just about ready for publication. There's some final tweaks that are occurring, but it's recommendations for the design and assessment of marine single-point mooring or multi-point mooring facilities. 205, design and construction of breakwaters and soft seabeds. 211, guidelines for the design of fender systems. 212 is criteria for acceptable movement of ships at berths. 213, design guidelines for marine multipurpose terminals. 224, planning of fishing ports. 225, seismic design guidelines for port structures. And then the last group of active working groups is the 231, mooring, bollards, and hooks, site selection, maintenance, and testing. 232, mid-ocean-related risk during the construction of marine works. 233, inspection, maintenance, and repair of waterfront facilities. 235, ship dimensions for planning and designing marine infrastructure. And 153B, which is the most important of them all because I'm the chair of this one, is the recommendations for the design and assessment of marine oil, gas, and petrochemical terminals. You may recall we published, for some of you that are in this active in this sector, we published 153 in 2016, and 153B is an update of that document that will address also adding LNG and floating LNG and other types of oil and gas facilities. So next. Some of the newly forming working groups, guidelines for use of BIM in infrastructure for port and waterways. 239 is the mitigation of tsunami disaster in ports. And 240, guidance for ports in small island countries. This is really focused initially on the Pacific, but it could be applicable for other locations as well. Okay. So in summary, we're very active and we're very productive. There's more participation opportunities, and you're welcome to, like I mentioned earlier, to reach out and find out if there are openings on any of these groups, particularly the newer ones. We're also always interested in hearing your thoughts on new topics for different working groups. So are there industry needs that are not being met that you might want to propose a working group? Lastly, and not on this slide, but I'll just mention that we have formed in this past year an alliance of sorts with the Oil Companies International Marine Forum. So they are now we're working on setting them up as a sister organization to Piank, and they've got active participation in some of our working groups that are related to topics that are very important to the oil and gas companies. So I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have. I think we have some time. Hearing none. Joe, back to you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much. It's a great overview. And if you have questions, please contact Ron. If you have trouble finding his contact information, you can find ours on the PIANC USA website. We'll link you up. So that brings us on to RecCom, and we have Mr. Jonathan Armbruster, Vice President of Taylor Engineering, who serves as our principal rep. So, Jonathan, turning it over to you.
Thank you. Joe, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today. I just want to give an overview with the RecCom team. First, I'd like to note that RecCom is chaired by Esteban Biondi from Argentina. From the U.S., I serve as the principal rep, and Mark Pirello is our alternate rep. He's from Moffitt Nickel. Notably, we've had turnover on the young professional representative. That role is currently vacant, so stay tuned. We will be looking for a young professional representative if there's anybody out there who has interest in that. Next, please. Highlighting our most recently published reports here in 2020, a couple publications. RecCom report number 168, single point yacht mooring, and then RecCom report number 147, guidelines for managing and the relationships between recreational navigation and commercial ports. You'll see on the next slide we have a number of active working groups, and I'll just give a very brief guideline or summary of status. 148 is sustainable recreational navigation infrastructure. And this project, this working group is working on a final draft in the next few months and hoping to publish this year. 149, many of you may be familiar with the Piank guidelines for marina design. This is a multi-volume guideline. I believe initially the first volumes were published in 2016. And so working on the final volume and have recently just appointed working group members from the U.S. to this group, and this is a awaited publication to finalize those guidelines on marinas. 169, fire protection, detection, and controls in marinas has been a little slow of late. We're trying to re-engage and with a goal of developing a draft by the end of this year. Working group 182, underwater acoustic imaging of water transport infrastructure. A draft is also in development there. Next slide, please. 202, influence of recreational navigation infrastructure on waterfront projects. So this is a joint RecCom ICOMIA working group, and it's had a little bit of a slow go here during the pandemic. There is efforts here to get back engaged there. 203 actually is an INCOM Sustainable Waterways working group. RecCom provides representation there for crossover topics. Recommendation for the use of AIS data for recreational navigation infrastructure. This has been changed from a typical working group effort to drafting a position paper, which is nearly complete. So you should be on the lookout for that if you have interest in the AIS data area. 217, alternative propulsion systems for recreational boats and impacts on marina design. Effectively, this is decarbonization. Recently, we've held the kickoff meeting, and this working group is off to a strong start. Guidelines for inland waterway infrastructure to facilitate tourism. Again, this is a joint working group, INCOM and VCOM and RecCom. New kickoff meeting was just held with a new chair. 220, planning, design, and operational guidelines for pump-out systems and recreational facilities. Progress has stalled on this one a little bit. We're working to re-energize and looking for some new membership there. 221 is a relatively new working group, design guidelines for recreational boating slipways, as seeking a chairman. 222, design guidelines for floating breakwaters in marinas, is making strong progress on a draft, so that is soon to be moving forward for publication. And then 223, meaningful inclusion of fishing communities in recreational marinas, guidelines for planning. We are seeking additional members and planning for a kickoff meeting. Next. Working groups are always in development, and as Ron mentioned, we're looking for any input or ideas of where RecCom might contribute to address issues. A couple or three activities right now where we're developing terms of reference, which is the base for working groups. There will be 3 new working groups starting, so you may keep your eye open for involvement on these. First is carbon management for marina and boat harbors, and then climate change adaptation planning for marina and boat harbors. And then the third is floating houses in marinas. Next, please. I would like to highlight the MEDA Award. This is a prestigious award for marina excellence in design. And what I've included here on the slide is the call for applications that you'll find online at Piank. We have had a very few applications come in with the recent call, and we're working on some additional information to solicit further applicants. So if there's anyone here on the line who recognizes or knows of a marina that would deserve consideration for this award, please contact me or go to the web link there and keep an eye out for another call for applications. I think in some sense the pandemic has slowed down some of the activity here, but we definitely know there are a lot of deserving marina and marina design efforts that are out there that deserve recognition. So please reach out if you have any suggestion or interest in this award. Next. And then, so in summary, we always can use more participation on the working groups. Particularly, you will have noted that some of the topics are becoming more granular, very specialized topics, seeking members with unique expertise. So when you see those calls, please respond, and or you note that a few of the working groups are still forming and could use input. If any of them are of interest to you, reach out to me and I can certainly connect members and individuals, professionals that might lend support in those areas. We have had some impact from the pandemic on the productivity, but our chair is working hard to re-energize activity in a number of areas. And then lastly, again, to reiterate, any potential candidates for the MEDA Award, please consider applying. We definitely want to expand the pool of applicants and recognize all the hard work that goes into developing some pretty amazing facilities. With that, I'm available to take any questions you may have.
Well, I have a question, and I should have asked Ron the same one. It sounds like a lot of the participants you get for the working groups comes through word of mouth. The advertising helps, but it's probably not where most of them draw from. Is that a true observation? And what can we do as members of PIANC USA or just people interested to help get people involved? What do you think? What do you think resonates? And I ask Jonathan, and then I go to Ron.
Yeah, I think that there's a formal process to where we make calls for working group participants. Similar, we will have the principal rep, alternate rep, YP rep. We don't always get responses or as many responses as we might like, and word of mouth is key. Venues like this where everyone gets a chance to see what we're up to as well as where they might contribute. I just encourage people to reach out, spread the word, and then provide feedback. Some of these working groups, of course, the concepts have come from other national sections, and we have a supporting role. In some cases, we of course have a leadership role. They come from our efforts. So again, any opportunity we can to spread the word, and when working groups are being formed, to identify those professionals that might contribute. Of course, it is there's a time commitment and a technical knowledge base that's required, and that's what makes the work products successful. So I appreciate anyone's help in identifying individuals when you see these requests come across.
Okay, Ron, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think most of the time we get our members from the announcements that are sent out from the USA section. So those are the nominees send their interest in, and then we evaluate and select candidates as a group. But I think there are, and it depends on the working group. Some of them get an immense amount of interest in participation, and some of them less so. I found myself in certain occasions recruiting members that I know would have something to contribute. So I reach out to people who might have interest where we don't have enough people applying. So, but in general, I think there's a lot of ways and a lot of openings for people to participate if they have interest.
Well, thank you both. I appreciate your time and the overview. We will move on to the next commission, which is the Enviacom. I never say it the correct way, but Environmental Commission. And Burton Sudel is the principal representative, and he is from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, our Engineer Research and Development Center. So, Burton, I turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Joe, just a quick verbal check.
I had to unmute myself. Yes, I can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with Army Corps of Engineers at our Engineer Research and Development Center based out of Vicksburg, Mississippi. I'm the principal representative of Enviacom, as we usually call it. Todd Bridges is our chair. He is also at the ERDIC out of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Our ALTS rep is Victor McGar. He's with Rambo out of their office in Chicago, Illinois. Currently, our YP representative is vacant. I hope we solve that problem very, very soon. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Eddie Brower. Eddie Brower is the Enviacom secretary. He keeps us straight on a lot of issues behind the scenes. So a quick shout out to Eddie for his involvement as well. Okay, next slide. I'm going to be fairly consistent with the two working groups that came before me. And so I'll be talking to you in general order about recently completed working groups to start things off. All these working groups that you see here were completed within the last 18 months or so. They cover a variety of topics. You know, the first one, 175, that I chaired, environmental risk management. On 176 was working with nature. Couldn't help but recognize and appreciate President Loeffler's comments and mention of working with nature. You know, the Piank position paper on working with nature was originally stood up in 2008 and then in revised form in 2011. But up until very, very recently, we really haven't laid out a process for how working with nature would be applied in practice. And so this working group set out and accomplished just that with their working group 176 report. We're also actively engaged in communicating with the Permanent Task Group on Climate Change. They have recently published two reports, 178 on climate change adaptation, and also looking at resilience for the maritime and inland waterborne transportation system. We recently published a report for Working Group 188 on carbon management reports, and then very soon to be hot off the press, the report from Working Group 195 on applied ecosystem services. Okay, next slide. We got several active working groups ongoing. These are summarized here. There are a variety of environmental issues concerned with our waterways infrastructure. Working Group 175 is focused on coastal plants where they may be mangroves, helping to reduce erosion along the shoreline of those plants that spend all their time growing and thriving underwater. Other potential impacts would be the potential effects on sea turtles and mammals, the working group being addressed there, 170. Sustainability reporting for ports is actively ongoing for Working Group 174. Working Group 214 is on beneficial sediment use. I'm actually mentoring that particular working group. That's a really good one because that's a joint effort between not only Piank and Enviacom, but also the Central Dredging Association and the Western Dredging Association as well. So that's going to be a very collaborative effort and report coming out of that working group. Working Group 218 focuses on invasive alien species. The non-native species are proliferating a lot of in our ports and waterways, and so this report will be focused on dealing with that particular issue. And then we have some emerging issues. Some of those are maybe not, they may not be chemical from an environmental perspective, but some of those effects may be more physical, such, for example, potential effects of underwater sounds. So Working Group 226 was stood up to address that particular issue. Okay, next slide. We have a few newly forming working groups as well. Working Group 227, a guide for assessing and managing environmental restrictions on dredging and disposal operations. A lot of us recognize we have a lot of restrictions on our dredging operations worldwide, not only just in the United States. And so this working group is being stood up and help address, what those problems are and how the best to manage those problems and challenges from a dredging perspective. Another important aspect of Working Group 230 is attracting funding for nature-based solutions related to navigation infrastructure. Nature-based solutions are becoming increasingly not only necessary but popular. But one of the impediments we have is how to attract that funding to actually implement these projects. And so that working group is going to address that particular topic. We have 2 terms of references that are going right now. The first one on environmental use of navigation structures. I do see some potential collaboration with 1 or 2 other working groups I've already seen. So maybe we can reach out to each other and get some cross-collaboration on that particular topic. Speaking of cross-collaboration, we're also developing terms of reference for overarching environmental guidance that would be used by other working groups. I'm sure all the commissions are interested in what that might be looking like. We are working, I think, with INCOM right now in particular to help understand what that particular working group might involve. Okay, next slide. One of the things that I think is really important for us, and me in particular, is these joint working groups. We, for the last couple of years, have really emphasized more and more, the outreach with other working groups, but also particularly other commissions. Because a lot of the problems and challenges that we deal with are multidisciplinary. And the best way to do that is get those multiple disciplines in the room working on these reports together. And so this is a good example for INCOM Working Group 203, where I'm involved as an MECOM member on the publication of Sustainable Inland Waterways. And so that report's going very well, and we hope to have that report published later on in 21. Another possibility, and one that we're working with up front, is INCOM 228 on management and operation on low-use waterways. Okay, next slide. Others have touched on this, but I tell you what, COVID-19 really has delayed progress on a number of our working groups. And that was particularly true about 9 to 12 months ago, but I'm very pleased to see how well we've responded. And I think almost all of our working groups are up and running again and making great progress. And so while we've had a delay earlier, I think we're making up for that really well. There's a lot of opportunities for pursuing joint working groups with other PIANC commissions. I touched on that a little bit already, but I know there's some other working groups that I've already seen in the slides that really may benefit from some of that cross-collaboration. And so there's opportunities out there within PIANC commissions to do more of that collaboration. We also see creative ways to leverage working groups. For example, we reached out to the Western Dredging Association, and we're going to have a collaborative PIANC webinar in late May on sediment beneficial use. So I think going forward, that outreach outside of PIANC to other organizations to really raise the visibility of PIANC and what we do, I think it's important for us going forward to raise that awareness of what we do and to continue with that outreach going forward. That's all I had, so be glad to entertain any questions.
Well, Burton, thank you very much. That was most informative. Lots of really interesting and emerging ideas coming out of Enviacom. I'm going to pose the same question to you as the others. In getting participants for the working groups, are you finding that one-on-one or word of mouth is attracting, or are you also able to get quite a number from the advertisements that come out from PIANC and PIANC USA to try to attract participation?
I think the advertisements within PIANC USA work pretty well. 9 times out of 10, I think we get really good responses there But there are the minority of the cases, and I think Ron touched on this already. We have to work on that outreach, and sometimes we got to reach out to people that have that technical expertise that we know that would bring great value to that particular working group in the development of that report. So sometimes that really falls back on us in terms of the relationships that we have and that outreach, not only within the Corps, but anywhere in the United States to reach out to those folks. Because sometimes the best value is bringing new people in that may not be as familiar with Piank, but have that technical expertise. And so I think that's really good, I think, for getting Piank's name and our recognition in front of others that may not be quite aware of what we do.
No, I would agree. I think that's true for anything. Participation is what draws people in. Just attending doesn't sustain them. So I think you're dead on about that. All right, we will move on to the next commission, and that's INCOM. And Brian Tetrault is the, I guess I got it wrong on the agenda. Jose Sanchez is the Deputy Director for R&D for U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Works at headquarters USACE and is connected to our ERDIC for the R&D work as well as other parts of the Corps of Engineers. So with that, Jose, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Good evening, too, as well. Un placer verlo, señor Esteban. So, INCOM, this is a team sport, and I think a lot of you guys already have covered in the other commissions the same way. I am the principal representative. I've been the principal since 2017. Before that, I was the alternate, actually, in 2015. I was also a work group member, too, that produced reports and stuff. So that was good to grow within the commission and then get to the position of being the principal. It has been very valuable to learn from all that experience. Actually, my first Piank event was in 2002. And so for the last 19 years, I've been engaged with Piank, and I can only say good things about it. Brian Tetrault, he is in our Coastal Hydraulics Laboratory. Brian has been also involved with Piank for several years now, I think 4 or 5 years. He brings a lot of experience into it. Jeremy Giovando, it's really, he actually is part of the task group of climate change. He works in the Coal Regions Research Engineering Laboratory as part of the Engineering R&D Center. He has just recently joined on the talks. We are looking for a YP. We have a member of the YP, and his name is Brian Ball, but he left the organization, and we haven't sought a replacement. So we're recently in communications with Kayla to get an announcement out for that. Next slide, please. And we just recently published this report, 2021, on the use of small hydro power plants in waterways. As you know, this is a emerging technology. It's already being applied in several rivers, even in some of the large rivers too. In Mississippi River is one of them here in the U.S., but across the world, this is a topic of discussion. So it was very timely to get that working group standing and show different alternatives that are being utilized in the world for this topic. And what are the actual benefits, but also what are the constraints, especially in high sediment rivers. Next slide, please. We've also published here in 2020 several important reports, including an inland classification for South America and in terms of the barge sizes and configuration of tow and containers. That also rolls into 179, the standardization of inland waterways, and some of the proposed revisions from an old report that we had classification that was in 1992. Some of these new things are also happening. It was covering 191, and that is the replacement of wood into composites for fenders and other components within the lock chambers. And that was also very timely because the U.S. as well as Canada and others in the world are introducing more composites into their designs, or in their, not only in their new construction, but also in the innovation of replacing or modernizing their current lock structures. And then the fatigue steel structures. Next slide. We have a good number of acting working groups. There is no lack of that. And the chair, which is Philippe Rigaud. Philippe is a professor at the University of Liège in Belgium. He pushes us. He really pushes the activity to increase, to maintain that working group level high, and the production of them too, trying to keep everybody in line. And he does a fantastic job, I have to say. But there's a good number of them here, and I'm going to let Brian Tetral, he's here on the call too, to talk about some of the status of this, because some of these is 125, for example, has been going on for a while, and he's actually an active member in it. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. Yes, as Jose says, several active working groups, a lot of progress being made. In particular, with the River Information Services Guidelines, Working Group 125, we're on track to update the RIS guidelines that were published in 2019. We're on track to publish an update for 2022, taking into account the rapid advances in technology and developments in e-navigation in the maritime world. Some of the others on here are progressing quite well. I don't have the report status for each of these, but they are proceeding on time for the most part. Next slide, please. More working groups happening here. The Innovations in Shiplift is being led primarily by representatives from China, where they have several substantial ship lifts, so a very interesting work going on there. Working Group 210 on smart shipping is looking at the infrastructure side of smart shipping, whether it be more automated or even autonomous vessels on inland waterways. So looking at the requirements for example, locks, bridges, and even waterway design related to quote-unquote smart shipping. And then some other working groups are mostly, many are updating existing or old reports that were done many years ago. I believe the accidental impacts from ships on fixed structures is one of those. There is also, I don't see it here, maybe next slide, please. There was also one we might have passed out on the first page about the various types of the status of locks, different lock designs and things like that. The update on the final report of the Commission on the Study of Locks, Working Group 206. So a lot of, as Jose said, a lot of good work going on in the working groups, plenty of opportunity for, again, U.S. participation. There's several we're looking for participation in the newly forming working groups as well. In particular, Working Group 237, we've reached out to colleagues in other federal agencies, particularly the Maritime Administration, that have experience in this. So we're hoping that they'll be able to participate and represent the U.S. And then we've also reached out to the National Transportation Safety Board for potential representation in Working Group 241 regarding accidents and calamities at hydraulic structures.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Hey, one of the things there too, and Burton alluded to this, is several of these working groups are in conjunction with another commission. Actually, the 228 is three. It's NBCOM, RECCOM, and NCOM. And that's the kind of things we're going to see. I think every so often we definitely have to look across the other commissions and see where the benefit would be to work together and to produce a better report, right? It's more encompassing. It's not just what we used to, that terminology in the U.S. a lot, which is stovepipe. It's just a single topic, and that's not what we want. As you can tell, we're highly productive. We've got a lot of working groups going on, but that also requires more participation. So it is the catch-22. We want more topics to address and to investigate, but at the same time, it requires more people. In the U.S., I have seen a drop in terms of people interested in participation on the working groups in the last 4 years. And going to your question, I'm going to jump ahead on your question, Joe. That was in terms of how do we reach out for participation. It's actually, I would say, multi-pronged, right? So the announcement that comes out of Piank, I think it's well received and it's well disseminated. But then it's also the participation of the income members, right? I would say that's one of the values of having myself, Brian, and Jeremy and others, is that we also become, ambassadors of the topic and reach out. We also have a network, right? So when people reach this level of being in the commission, obviously we have 20 plus years of experience, so we know the community in this area, and we reach out directly. So it's word of mouth, like you said. It's one of the other topics. But there's this new generation. We have received the struggle from this new generation in understanding the value of being a member in a working group and being a member of Piank, interacting. The funny thing is that as soon as they start interacting, then they're believers, right? It has happened with a couple of new members joining working groups, and they go, oh my gosh, if I wouldn't knew it. Exactly. If you only knew the value of that technical exchange with international members, you understand that your future research or your future technical work or your future application of products in projects will become just better. And so that we need all this. But now, don't get me wrong, the face-to-face interaction, oh my gosh, hurt us big time this year. Not having that face-to-face, not having those conferences, that networking opportunity also is an attraction to those new members too, like to be able to travel internationally, interact with members that probably they just read in papers or in books and have that value to them as being not having it obviously detracts from them wanting to become members. So that's something that I hope that we can overcome in the years ahead. And the pandemic has definitely had an impact on participation. I think people have focused very heavily in their work and work that actually pays them, right? So when we reach out for them for hey, what's the status? How's the report coming? Well, it's a lot harder. And they were performing a lot of these activities when they got together in workshops or in face-to-face meetings in different countries. And when they got together, they got a lot done. Right? The focus was completely on the report. And that's not as effective in the current times. We're definitely trying to help out. One of the things that we have done in income, and I think Burton alluded to this too, is we assign myself or Brian and others, country members, as liaisons to the working groups. We try to help them along, but also keeping a close eye on their progress and then report up to the commission. Any questions? Unless, Brian, you want to add something else?
No, sir. Just to echo what you say about the value of participation and the influence that U.S. representatives can have on these international groups to make sure that our requirements and concerns are reflected in the outputs. So, thank you.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Hey, Eric Johnson, I saw your question there. You are so right. We do need to do a better job of coordinating with the Inland Navigation Design Center. We have had members of the Inland Navigation Design Center. We have had interactions in the past. I think those linkages have dwindled, and we need to do a better job of that. I'll be happy to reach out if you or anybody can give me that entry point of POC so we can spread the word better and have them more engaged. I'm a huge advocate of that, of having the INDC involved. Over.
Okay. Well, Jose and Brian, thank you for a great overview. You have a lot of activities going as well. And And I agree. The idea of professionally developing and giving back to our professions in our off-duty time is something that not everybody quite understands, appreciates, or gets. And that calls into the question of mentoring and coaching, not only people in our own organizations, but people that we meet in the profession and other areas. Because as everybody on this call, I assume, already buys into that, already understands the value, but we have to do a better job of communicating it. So I thought, Jose, you did a great job of laying that out. So thank you. Appreciate that.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to young professionals. Matt McCarthy with Mclaren Engineering.
Yes, thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. For the next few minutes, I'll be sharing some updates from our young professional group, what we've been up to, and what we're planning for the future. So this is our current USA YP leadership team, myself, Matt McCarthy, out of the New York City region, Nicole Pauly, Ed Moffett-Nickel out of Tampa, Nick Stefani at Edgewater Resources out of Wisconsin, and then Kayla, I put Kayla on here. She's been terrific. She's not quite an appointed member, but she's really helped push us along. Andrea Vetteri recently reached her term limit she's with Moffett-Nickel, and she's based out of Southern California. So why you see on the little geography map that California is kind of hashed out right now. Our pre-COVID strategy was to have at least one representative on kind of each one of our major coasts, and we have an open call for nominations for Andrea's successor out right now, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. So, next slide. Thank you. So some of our recent accomplishments, we did add 2 new board members late last year, Nicole out of Tampa, Southeast Gulf region, and then Nick out of the Great Lakes region. Traditionally, the PIANC USA YP team has been just 2 representatives, and we expanded that. We thought it made more sense. It's certainly a big country and a lot of areas to cover. We've been having monthly planning meetings to go over our upcoming initiatives. I will say that COVID has been as or more difficult for us than the other commissions. Pre-COVID, essentially all of our events were in person. I'd say kind of our go-to event strategy was either an in-person technical construction tour followed by a happy hour, or some sort of technical seminar in person followed by happy hour. So a lot of hands-on and a lot of networking, which has been particularly tough to replicate. So we're very optimistically looking towards the future. We were able to kick off a webinar series that we're hosting back in December with the goal of hosting at least one per quarter. December was great. We were able to highlight the DePop Williams Award winners for this past year, 2 of which were Americans. One just happened to be living abroad in New Zealand. And then we had another one just last month on kind of a coastal topic, and thought moving forward, our next one will be in June, and to use this to one, highlight technical topics, and then especially work by other young professionals, so we can kind of learn from each other, as well as professional issues that young professionals are dealing with and are particularly timely right now. So next slide. Thank you. So here are a couple of our current initiatives. We just talked about the webinar series. We are actively seeking speakers and topics. So if you have anything, certainly if you have anything you'd like to present on, please get in touch with me or one of the other representatives, or even if it's something in a space that isn't being addressed very well now and you think there's room for us to help, please, we love that kind of input. We do have an open call for nominations to fill Andrea's spot. It's extended to May. I think the members should have received something recently notifying that. Please apply if you're interested. It's not just limited to those on the West Coast. We're certainly willing to expand, and if COVID has taught us anything, it's that location, geography doesn't quite matter as much as it once did, now that so much is being done virtual. One of the things that we plan to do as a group and are really excited about is to kick off a scholarship program for upcoming conferences. We think this is a great tool to get other young professionals engaged and to really build some excitement. So we're still finalizing exactly which event it will be. There's some talk of maybe doing the upcoming ports conference in Honolulu, but it might slide to possibly the Piank Americas event, which you'll hear more about shortly, I'm sure, with Calvin talking. But the idea would be to host a paper competition or something similar to defray or support travel costs for young professionals and to hopefully integrate them, keep them integrated at Piank. The BTV, Biannual Technical Visit. So for those who aren't aware, this is kind of a big deal to in the Young Professional Commission internationally. This is an event held every 2 years with all the international YP groups, and it's generally a city venue is hosted, and that host city country provides at least 2 days of technical tours and speakers and networking events, and it's really been great. The program's been going on for about 20 years, and I've been to 3 or 4 of those. So in those 20 years, the USA has never hosted one. So it was our turn, and we kind of got the message, and all of the the internationals, those in Europe and Asia are eager to come over here and see how we're doing things. So it's looking like 2023 is going to be when that occurs. We had been slated for actually this year, which obviously couldn't happen. So preparations will have to start for that probably later this year, and it will be a pretty big lift for us, but it'll be a lot of fun and very, very high profile for our group. Things we want to continue doing, there's been a lot of talk of working groups, and that is one of Piank's core missions, and to help YPs get into those working groups and integrated there and continue their integration with overall Piank membership. And then resuming in-person local events when appropriate. This is something we're all, and me especially, are eager to do. As I mentioned before, in the past we've had just huge success with doing those in-person technical tours and happy hours, and it seems like because a lot of that can be done outdoors. Hopefully we'll be able to resume that pretty soon. In the commissioners meeting this morning, we talked about dates, and it could be as early as July this summer, so we'll get to take advantage of some good weather. But we're really, really excited to do that again. Next slide.
Matt, did we lose you?
No, I'm still here.
Okay.
My internet must be lagging. I'm sorry. I'm still looking at the current initiative slide, but I assume it's changed. But so in summary, the ways to get involved with our group, we'd love to get you guys involved, and those who are interested and know other young professionals who are passionate about the industry. First and foremost, we have that open co-chair position. Call for nominations. If you're interested or know someone who might be interested, please let them and let us know. We can definitely, if you have someone who's passionate about helping, we can definitely find a spot for them, whether it's this official position or others. Please, we heard earlier how there's vacant or newly vacant YP positions in working groups, and those are terrific, tremendous opportunities. So please get involved that way, reach out. And then we have a number of initiatives. You just saw them. Feel free to help out leading those, or if you feel passionate about one of those, please let us know. We could use help, especially with the BTV. That's going to be a pretty major lift for the group, and we will absolutely have to staff up to get that executed. And then it's not on here, but again, our webinar series, we're actively seeking speakers and topics, so please reach out on that. All the emails for our current leadership team are on here. Feel free to email us, call us, what have you. We're all very open and responsive, and it's fun to be engaged, and it's good for everybody. So with that, those are our updates. Are there any questions or things that those would like to know more about?
I think one thing that might be of interest to some of us who aren't YPs anymore is are the people participating, do they have a primary interest? Is it networking? Is it expanding their technical knowledge? Is it career growth? Because I think that insight would help the other groups that are presenting today to maybe understand how to share the opportunities that would be of greater interest to the YPs to participate.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to speak for everyone, but I'd say broadly it's all of those things, and I'd say it's tough to say, but I'd say traditionally technical has been kind of the biggest motivator, followed by networking and professional issues, and as far as YPCom International and kind of the bigger picture is concerned, I've had this discussion at kind of a bigger group, and not just limited to the USA. And I'd say that overall internationally, the YPCom sees itself as a leadership, growing leadership skills and abilities, which is not necessarily limiting itself to technical, but is really, I'd say, a combination of all those things. It's networking, professional issues, and technical, if that helps.
Oh, it does. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go back to the chat. I sort of lost the bubble there listening to folks, but I just want to mention that there's a comment here about sharing information by social media, and that certainly applies to YPs. And we do. And if you're not getting it, we need to find out why you're not receiving it. There are emails that go out every time we become aware of a working group opportunity. Certainly with the YP events, we want to share those. We might consider sharing them beyond the known YPs to other people who could then share them with people that are young professionals. I think that's an opportunity to expand. But if we're not connecting on LinkedIn or through email, let me know, let Kayla know, and we'll figure out how to rectify that. And Ellen, you'd asked about the beneficial uses policy, which is a very interesting document. I agree. The Secretary James side, and I assume Burton has keyed in on that comment in the chat box. So with that, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our next presenter, Calvin Creech, with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Mobile District, but he actually works in Brasilia, Brazil, and has been there for several years. And he's going to talk about the Piank America's effort, which is, I would say, a highlighted effort of Piank USA. Calvin, turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity to share kind of some of the initiatives that we have ongoing, both within the COCOM, the International Cooperation Commission, as well as the Piank America Initiative. As you mentioned, I'm Calvin Creech, and I work for the Mobile District in charge of technical engineering projects within Latin America with my duty station in Brasilia, Brazil. So kind of who's who of the COCOM. So we'll be talking about two things in this presentation, the COCOM as well as the Piank America Initiative. Really, the Piank America Initiative is kind of the main activity that has been ongoing within Piank USA and the COCOM. But the COCOM leadership at the headquarters level is now chaired by Mr. Abbas Sarmad, recently taken over from Edward Schmeltz. And so we have at the highest level USA representation for the COCOM, as well as, I think it's very relevant to note, Mr. Nick Pansek as the Vice President to the Americas, providing a lot of leadership in a lot of the coordination, international collaboration activities within the Americas as well. Specific to Piank USA, I act as the principal representative for the COCOM for Piank USA. And then we also have a lot of support from some of the USA commissioners, Lillian Almodovar, as well as Jim Walker, who represents AAPA as the Director of Government Relations. Next slide. So what is the COCOM mission? The COCOM is not a technical commission like some of the other commissions that we've just discussed. If you're not familiar with the COCOM, it really is focused on international cooperation. And so the COCOM really supports and promotes Piank in countries in transition, countries without national sections, or countries that are not currently have a qualifying member status. One of the approaches is to create effective tools and methods to disseminate information. How does somebody within the waterborne commerce, waterborne transport stakeholder groups in a country that doesn't have a Piank national section or qualifying member, how do they receive some of this technical guidance, some of these webinar information, some of these events? How do they get involved with Piank? Well, the COCOM is really a mechanism within Piank in order to reach out to those folks, and so that's kind of part of the mission within COCOM. COCOM also organizes and assists in the COPADEC conference, and so coastal engineering and port development in developing countries, and so that's another kind of regional or Piank event that's part of the COCOM. But then there's also missions in order to organize regional seminars and workshops. And one of the big ones that we'll be talking about is the Piank Americas conference, or the Piank America initiative. So this is an initiative that has been recently formed, more or less restarted in 2020, but there's a really solid foundation of history that kind of established the Piank America initiative. This really came from Piank headquarters leadership, identifying the need to build more of a confluence of leadership within the Americas at the Piank headquarters level. So it really builds on a lot of previous discussions and previous events. The Americas were actually blessed with a lot of events in the Americas recently at the Piank headquarters level. So we had the Smart Rivers in Buenos Aires in 2015, COPADEC in Rio de Janeiro in 2016, Smart Rivers in Pittsburgh 2017, and then the World Congress in Panama in 2018. And at each of these events, a lot of the American countries met kind of inside discussions to discuss what can we develop in order to have kind of a more strong regional Piank initiative. And so the Piank America initiative was really born from a lot of those discussions. Currently, this initiative has a steering committee with representatives from the various national sections and qualifying members, as well as other countries that have no status throughout the Americas now. And so that steering committee really guides a lot of the decisions for coordinating regional events, disseminating a lot of the working group information that is developed from the various technical commissions. And so we've been having quarterly meetings since June to kind of discuss and disseminate a lot of that information. Next slide. The current status of the various countries, if you go back to the country map. So currently there's 4 national sections in the Americas with Argentina, Canada, Colombia, and the United States. Canada being a very new status, as President Lafleur just had mentioned at the beginning presentation. And then we also have 3 qualifying members with Ecuador, Panama, and Brazil. And so it's been a really interesting confluence of activities and involvement. I'm stationed down in Brazil, and so Brazil has been very involved in a lot of the steering committee meetings as well. We've really appreciated our Brazilian partners as well in this. But this kind of gives you an idea, an overview of the various countries that are currently involved in Piank now. Next slide. Okay, so what are some of the goals of the Piank America initiative? Really, the steering committee identified these 4 goals to implement within the Americas. So first, to provide opportunities to enhance professional development of members within the region. The second goal is to strengthen America's leadership within Piank, and of course that represents not just Piank USA, but the various countries' leadership within Piank as an organization as well. The third goal is to disseminate best practices and guidelines on port infrastructure and waterway development throughout the Americas. I think there was a really great example of that through the INCOM working group document for the classification system for South America, a working group document that was developed in conjunction with the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. I think that that's a really good example of developing some of that technical guidance as well as disseminating that. So we're working with how to advertise and market a lot of these types of guidance that is being published that is really relevant to those within the Americas as well. And then the fourth goal being to increase the recognition of the importance of waterborne transport as a key water use component within the context of IWRM, Integrated Water Resource Management, across the global water community. Next slide. So some of the types of events that have been ongoing through the Piank America initiative involves really, not really events that have been specifically developed by this initiative, but really an opportunity to advertise and to disseminate other national sections events to the countries throughout the Americas. So the Piank USA quarterly webinars, the technical webinars, those are advertised through the various national sections and qualifying members through dissemination through the steering committee. Piank Argentina is very involved in conducting webinars, and those are also advertised throughout the Americas. And that's particularly very relevant with many of the American countries being Spanish speaking. That's been a very positive webinar series that Piank Argentina has been hosting, and they've been willing to share that with their counterparts throughout Central South America and throughout the Americas. Another goal, really objective, is to organize some training events in the Americas. Our Brazilian partners have stepped up, and they've allowed to leverage curriculum and training materials that have been developed through a capacity building program between the Army Corps of Engineers and the Brazilian government, that these materials can be made available throughout the Americas for those that may be interested. And so a lot of these types of courses that have been developed for the Brazilian government through a partnership that USACE already has that I work on can also be leveraged and potentially disseminated throughout some other of the countries that may be interested. And so those types of discussions are going on right now with the various stakeholders in the region as well. Next slide. And then really the last key point is something that we're really excited about, and that's kind of the announcement of a Piank America conference. And so there's been discussions for a number of years planning a regional conference, which is consistent with other types of Piank conferences. For example, what comes to mind is the Nordic Days conference, or the Mediterranean Days, or Piank Nordic, as well as the Piank Asia Pacific conferences. So there's other regions within the world that have these regional conferences. And so right now we're forming and developing a proposal for organizing the Piank America conference. Piank USA has stepped up and offered to host the initial conference within the Americas. The idea is for this conference to be rotating throughout the Americas with different host countries every 2 years. Again, the current proposal is that Piank USA would host the initial conference, the inaugural one, in early 2023, likely to be in southern Florida. And there's opportunities. We're at the very beginning stages of the organization of this conference, but there's certainly opportunities to combine this event with other Piank events, such as the Piank YP BTV, or potentially even a Piank USA Annual Meeting. So there's opportunities potentially to include this with other events as well. So some of our next steps, we'll be identifying and confirming the dates, locations of this event, things of this nature. But really one of the calls, I think, for the larger Piank USA community is, we're going to be developing and establishing some committees in order to start the organization of the Piank America Conference. And so if you feel that you have very strong planning skills or very strong technical skills in order to set an agenda, items that could be included within the overall Piank America conference, please feel free to reach out to Piank USA. Feel free to reach out to me. We'll be establishing and developing those planning committees soon, both a technical as well as a planning committee, and then also an executive committee led by the Piank USA commissioners. And through that, we'll be organizing the conference themes and then ultimately developing the agenda, the marketing and the sponsorship, and coming up with a schedule. So that's kind of where we're at. Again, preliminary stages of the event, but we're very excited about this event and hope that many of the Piank USA members will be able to participate as well. Next slide. So again, in summary, the COCOM mission is really on international cooperation more than technical collaboration, but really the dissemination of that technical information within an international context is really the mission of the COCOM. And again, one of the main activities is the establishment of the Piank America initiatives, where we are able to now share and collaborate with many of our partner nations within the Americas. We've identified training as a key area that many of the American countries are interested in collaborating with Piank USA. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for technical experts to become involved and help assist and train many of our partner nations that would be interested in this type of technical training and collaboration. And then again, the Piank Americas Conference will be and is becoming a major focus of this initiative as well as Piank USA. So with that, we'll be able to take any questions or discussion.
I would offer that this is a primary, maybe the primary initiative of Piank USA to encourage the participation in a much broader group of maritime professionals and inland navigation professionals, I should say, throughout the Americas. And it has a great deal of opportunity to build on what we know and to share what we have learned. I sometimes just think to myself that some of you are familiar with group dynamics, and there's a thing called storming, norming, and forming, talking about how groups come together. You storm together to work through who you are, get to know each other, and then you normalize your relationships, and then you form those activities that are productive from the combined efforts. And I would say that the effort is in the latter stages of the storming and into the norming, and that's largely due to Calvin's efforts to help serve as a collaborator, to bring people together, to help identify a key element of what is the common area of interest among the various representatives of the countries in the Americas. And it's moving along quite well. And I encourage others to stay attuned to what's going on. We'll try to keep updates on our website, and as information becomes available about the Piank Americas, which, as Calvin said, will be a signature event because there's a lot of opportunity here to recruit potential work group members, as we have discussed throughout the afternoon, as well as when we talk about young professionals entering the workforce, or in the workforce looking to expand their experience base and their professional development to engage a population that we have not been able to reach very effectively in the past. So it has, on multiple levels, great opportunity for the groups that are represented in today's meeting, as well as those people that we could reach out to. Anyone else have any thoughts they'd like to share? Okay, we will move into our next phase. We have a short panel discussion where we're going to talk about where is Piank USA headed. We talked about that through the afternoon, but I'm also going to use this opportunity in the middle of the meeting while we have the most attendees to offer a few announcements. And first, just a call for members. If you are, this meeting is open to anyone, so I assume most are PIANC members already. But if you're not, just go to the PIANC USA website and you sign up. There is a registration fee, and it varies depending on individual or corporate members and so forth. But I would encourage you to investigate that. To find a PIANC USA, just Google PIANC USA, and it'll take you right to it. It works really well. So the advantages, one, it opens the door to participation in the work groups, but as importantly, it allows you access to the technical reports and other PIANC products that are published, because these are available for sale to non-PIANC members. So if you're looking for references and information, that's a good way to achieve it. And if you're curious more about what the advantages are, just let me know. There's going to be a webinar between PIANC, ERDIC, the Corps of Engineers, and WEDA, the Dredging Association, Western Dredging Association, on the 28th of May at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I would encourage you to participate in this event, and if you need information about how to connect to it, you can just Google PIANC USA or WEDA, W-E-D-A, and it'll take you to the registration information. I'd also like to announce there's an AAPA Latin America Congress of Ports. It will be in November of this year, in 21, the very end of November. It'll be in Cartagena, Colombia. It's still being developed as you respond to pandemic, but it's set to go. And if you are interested in that, now's the time to be looking for participating or submitting a proposal or abstract. I'd also like to mention that there's a joint COPRI, which is an ASCE organization on coastal and ports, with PIANC USA. And this Ports 22 event is a regular event, though it was postponed because of the COVID, but it's going to be held 18 to 21 September 2022. However, the call for papers closes on the 23rd of January this year, 2021. So in about 2 months, that will close. I would encourage you, if you're interested, to submit an abstract. The meeting will be held in Honolulu, Hawaii. And we certainly are hoping that all the COVID restrictions will be lifted by that time. The PIANC Americas Conference, as Calvin's already mentioned, that's in March of 23. It'll be in South Florida. Haven't picked a location, probably in the Miami area, but definitely targeting that location. And the call for papers will be out probably in 6 to 9 months, somewhere in that area. But they're still working through the details. Webinars. PIANC USA has a regular program of webinars. At least quarterly, we ask one of the commissions that you heard briefed today to provide an update on a recent report that was released. You saw the summary of several, and we have a webinar that goes into depth. These are 1-hour webinars, typically around the noon time periods, so we're able to engage people across the United States. Last thing I'd mention is that the first week of May, PIANC USA will be sending out a survey. They're using the Survey Monkey tool, and that is inquiring on your interest in PIANC USA. We have webinars every quarter on the commissions, but we also have other webinars in addition to those that are not on as regular a schedule. And we've had a number this past year. We're interested in topics. We're interested in your recommendations of people to be involved with PIANC USA or your own interest in areas that you might be interested in participating. So be looking for that survey. Don't just send it right to your junk mail or delete it. Please take 5 minutes, fill it out, and return it. It will be very helpful. The last thing was it's always impressive when you hear the commissions talk about all the activity that's involved with the working groups. Just today, talking about active working groups, and this was not all the active working groups. These are just the ones that the principal representatives chose to highlight. There were 73 of them. That's a lot. That takes a lot of people. And I just want to thank all of you who are on the call today for your participation, and just to highlight how extensive the activities of Piank are. And that's just probably a message that we can share with others as we try to promote Piank and the opportunities that exist. Well, that concludes my announcements. And at this point, we're going to have our panel. And I'm going to turn it over to Jessica McIntyre, who's one of the members of the PIANC USA Board of Commissioners, to serve as moderator. Let her introduce the panel members who are actually on your screen, and take it away. Jessica, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the PIANC USA Annual Meeting, our first virtual one. Hope maybe our last, hopefully it is. So the recordings that you see on the screen right now are our esteemed panelists. I'm going to do a quick introduction. Ron Heffron is the Senior Vice President, Energy and Marine Group with CWI. He is also the Principal U.S. Representative on MARCOM and serves as the chair for MARCOM Working Group 153, which is recommendations for the design and assessment of marine oil, gas, and petrochemical terminals. Next up, we have Nick Pancic, who's the Vice President of Stantec. Nick also serves as a PIANC USA Commissioner and is a Vice President with the Executive Commission for PIANC International. Jose Sanchez, who's the Deputy Director of Research and Development and also the Deputy Chief Scientist for the Corps of Engineers. And Jose also serves as the Principal Representative for the U.S. on the Inland Navigation Commission and INCOM. Finally, Jim Walker, who is the Director of Government Relations for the American Association of Port Authorities, and Jim also serves as a PIANC USA Commissioner. So as we're going through this panel, feel free to put a question or comment into the chat, and we'll try to work that in. The idea is that it could be a little free-flowing, but we've been hearing from all of our other members on sort of what's been going on with PIANC and PIANC USA over the past year, what they're looking for in the near future. And so the goal of this is to present what we're looking to see how PIANC USA is moving forward in 2021 and beyond. So we're going to start this off. First question is for Jim Walker. At its foundation, PIANC is a technical organization providing expert guidance associated with ports, waterways, marinas, and coastal areas. What future technologies and trends does PIANC USA anticipate as the next big innovations in these fields?
Well, thanks, Jessica. I guess I'll begin from the ARC Investment Management. I'll borrow for their list last year that was published on disruptive innovation platforms. They identified 5 areas: artificial intelligence, energy storage, robotics, DNA sequencing, and blockchain technology. Now, arguably, all of these have an impact on PIANC and our stakeholders. AI and robotics are already being applied to autonomous vessels. Energy storage is the key to electric vessel and cold ironing technologies for ships. Blockchain is revolutionizing the freight logistics industry. And even DNA sequencing has implications for public health and the world's future needs for waterborne transport infrastructure. So, PIANC USA is a leader in the planning, design, and delivery of the infrastructure that allows these innovations to take hold and to thrive.
Thank you, Jim. The next question is for Nick Pancic. We are all keenly aware of the global COVID pandemic impact to virtually all sectors of the economy, including waterborne transport. How has PIANC USA been affected as an organization, and how should PIANC USA respond moving forward?
Sorry, was I muted?
Yes.
Yeah. You missed the best part. So what I was saying is we've all been living through this pandemic world for the last year, and hopefully there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But like many of our own organizations that we represent on a daily basis, Piank has been impacted by the pandemic. Our business model had traditionally been heavily reliant on a lot of face-to-face interactions and networking, whether it was through the annual General Assembly meetings or the council meetings, or through working group interactions where they would make site visits or do things as a group. We had to shift our focus and find different ways to accomplish our mission without minimum impact to our progress. And so I think we did an excellent job of turning what I would say lemons into lemonade. And we are actually, certainly at the XCOM level, and I think Francisco would echo this, that we are actually meeting more frequently and having better interactions by doing virtual meetings than we were able to do when they were quarterly meetings in person. And so by the same token, we are using webinars and Zoom type technologies and the WebEx like we're on today to host this type of a meeting. And so there's been some really good outcomes that have come out of this and allowed us to actually increase our level of connectivity while saving considerable expenditure on folks' travel time, wear and tear on the body, and the cost of those things. As you heard earlier, this year's AGA and Council event is going to be held virtually. It's going to be hosted by the Great Britain section, but they've got a great program, and I hope people can call in for that and participate actively as if they were there in person. But going forward, clearly we do have to find some way to get back to our core model of having face-to-face interaction and being able to do the type of networking that was helping us be a successful organization in the past. And so I think PIANC USA takes very seriously its responsibilities and the opportunities that are presented for us to be leaders in expanding our PIANC membership, whether it's in a virtual environment like this or in a face-to-face environment throughout the Americas, and try to continue to build and strengthen this organization, which is already great to begin with.
Thank you, Nick. So, Ron, how is the U.S. maritime community incorporating global climate change, and how is or should PIANC USA be assisting that effort?
What climate change? Just kidding. First, it's important to note that every working group starts with the terms of reference. So the TOR, it's mostly oriented around describing the scope and the content of the document to be produced. But the TOR also includes 3 key sections that are required to be described at the end of the document. One of them is just, what's the relevance to countries in transition, because that's a key part of our mission. But the second one is you have to describe the climate change considerations that will be incorporated into the document that's produced. And the third is what's the relevance to the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. So I think Piank has done a good job overall of recognizing the need to address climate change issues in the documents that are produced. Beyond that, there's in the U.S., there's lots of initiatives underway to make our shorelines more resilient as we try to address the globally changing climate. Examples are, the Corps of Engineers has major programs focused on Gulf of Mexico and Southeast Coast. There's also innovations like Living Breakwaters Project in the New York area in response to Superstorm Sandy, and similar programs in places like San Francisco Bay. So we're seeing a lot of great initiatives that the U.S. in general is undertaking. I think this really highlights an opportunity for Piank USA to provide some leadership by developing some guidelines for adaptive solutions. One of the inherent problems with the whole issue of sea level rise is the level of uncertainty that it's inherent in the estimates of how much sea level rise it will be in, 30, 50, or 100 years and beyond. So rather than spending all of the money today to protect against the highest estimates that might or might not occur in the future, within the future being, 30, 50 plus years out, it may be more prudent to build in the flexibility and adaptability to scale a protection once the risk is more imminent and the threat better quantified. So it has the added benefit of deferring the investment, recognizing the time value of money. So I think there is an opportunity for Piank USA to perhaps propose the development of guidelines that address this issue.
That's great information, Ron. From the other panelists, any other adds onto this one? Okay. So another question is for Jose. In a post-Panamax world, what strategy should U.S. organizations or businesses be pursuing, and how can Piank USA be part of that effort?
I think one of the main things that organizations need to be doing is obviously sharing lessons learned, understanding the challenges that this new type of ship is bringing in, right? We know for a fact that we are the coordinators. We're obviously dredging some ports. We already have plans to dredge and deepen other ports as well to accommodate these type of ships. That would tell me that it's about standards, guidelines, and processes associated with this new type of vessel, right? So I would say that's what the U.S. organization, not only U.S., but other organizations in the maritime get involved in, right? And then Piank USA is a great location to bring those best practices, lessons learned together. That's what we do in our working groups. That's what we do in our reports, not just for the U.S., but the entire world. And then use those, disseminate those across the world of technical experts and practitioners. I think that's the nexus, right? As more we implement this new world of ships, we need to understand what are the limitations, what are the challenges that have been faced already. Of course, we know about the Suez Canal, but it's more than that, right? It's in the offloading and the unloading. It's on the transiting inside the port and so forth. And I think that still in the embryonic stages, if you will, in the early stages for future practitioners.
I'm going to ask a question. Nobody out there wants to ask a question. I hope you guys aren't all asleep and just got your WebEx on. But I'm going to kind of go back to Ron and Jose's comment there. And what you're really, I believe I'm hearing in this, is economic analyses. And of course, it's always been part of maritime work that you got to have an economic analysis to show the benefits and the costs. But where does economics and Piank cross over? And what do you think that we, as a group, ought to be looking at for better engagement of the business on both the private as well as the public support to that to do these analyses, and who should the analyses be for? Taxpayers, private industry, who? So I'll throw it out to you, Jessica. You're moderator. I'll let you lead it. So figure out who. But I'm just curious about economic analyses.
Anybody dying to answer this question?
I can start, and I'll welcome everyone. And that's, it's sort of at the heart of every Corps of Engineers project is a cost-benefit analysis. So I think there is inherent economics built into the engineering that we do. I don't think it's a separation. I think it's part of the core of our mission is to consider the economics, the timing, and that sort of thing. Jose, I welcome your thoughts too.
No, you could not. I couldn't agree more. Obviously, when we're doing technical analyses, when we're doing these kinds of reports, there's a lot of technologies that have been applied across the world. We analyze how that benefit was gained, what is the long-term maintenance costs associated with those things. That's actually part of the working group report and study. But of course, what works in Canada doesn't mean that it works in Miami, right? So and the costs are very different as well too. So we also put that in the report. It is as a recommendation, of course, right? And at the end of the day, it's up to the practitioners and engineers to make the final decision. But that is part of the process. Jim probably has another.
I do. I see two audiences for economics. One is who's going to finance the project? Who's your banker? And if it's the World Bank, they have one set of criteria. If it's in the United States, it's the federal government. They have their defined criteria that you're to look at as far as economics. The other element of that, though, is the general public. And I think that's one that while Piank is a highly technical organization, you can't really overlook the importance of the public's understanding of navigation and ports and shipping and basically the supply chain. The Suez Canal provided an opportunity for a discussion about the supply chain that I haven't heard in a decade. I'm thrilled that the word infrastructure has now made its way into the vocabulary of the average American. And now it's that appreciation of supply chains and what this means as far as even disruptions. But if we can get the public to understand it and appreciate it, then we can get the support that leads to the money. I mean, a combination of that while you do your economics and you're justifying the investment and what the return on the investment is going to be, you're still competing for available funds, at least in the U.S., against other programs that are out there. So it's like in a $2 trillion infrastructure investment package where now everything's gotten the word infrastructure tied to the end of it, family infrastructure, knowledge infrastructure, all these things, the back to the basics of navigation channels, ports, and our supply chain movements, we've still got to try and get that understanding so that we can say that people will recognize and support the funding to basically then enact and construct these projects and properly maintain them.
Jessica, this is Nick. If I may, I'll just try to close that out. I think I want to echo what Jim has just said, is that is a collateral mission of an organization like Piank, and that is to educate the general public that they don't have the benefit of our technical background or expertise or perspective, but they are stakeholders in the future of our infrastructure and how it impacts not only our economies, but our livelihoods and our lifestyles. And so I'm going to offer to Francisco that maybe we consider a new commission within Piank and call it EduCom, and to help educate the general public as to the value of waterborne transport and recreational infrastructure.
I think that's a very interesting idea because it's not been one of the things that's been primary to educate the general population of the needs and the requirements, because they do pay the bills. So, Francisco, do you have anything you'd like to offer on that? Might be on mute. Back to you, Jessica.
That was a great question, Joe. I really appreciate it. And all four of you responded, just played off each other really well, which was great. It actually sort of leads us into another question, and this is going to be a little multi-part. So we've alluded to this in some of the other conversations, especially the commission representatives, as far as being involved in PIANC and how you can be involved. So for somebody new to the waterborne transport sector or individuals not familiar with PIANC, what are some of the benefits of becoming involved with PIANC USA? And Nick, just with your position, both being XCOM and PIANC USA, if you could field that question. But then I'd really love to hear from each of you also, because you have each been involved with PIANC in different ways and for a number of years, what your favorite or most impactful experience with PIANC has been that kept you involved and continuing to serve in these leadership positions.
Okay, well, I'll kick it off and then be anxious to hear what other folks have to say. As professionals, the definition of that term is really that you're on a mission of lifelong learning. And you're committed to innovating and trying to do better than your predecessors and set the bar high for your successors. And so PIANC, to me, has been an organization that really embraces that and provides that opportunity for anyone that takes the interest and wants to be involved. It's also very rewarding to network with the international community that is PIANC and to hear the perspectives and understand how common problems may be viewed differently in different contexts by different geographies and representatives from around the world. And so it really helps expand your mind, and it's actually quite inspirational to be able to meet folks that have those different perspectives. It's also been personally rewarding for me. I feel like it's been a place where I've had a chance to make a difference and think globally and try to do some things locally to be positive and make a change in the world. As far as the last point, I guess my aha moment with PIANC was I was fortunate to be involved in some of the early stages of the Panama Canal expansion program some 20 years ago, and I saw firsthand how they reached out directly to PIANC and to the expertise that PIANC offered to provide a lot of really vital and important technical input that helped guide the direction of that expansion program, which has turned out to be very successful for the country of Panama and for the world, I would say.
Thank you, Nick. Jose, could you sort of give your...
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hey, in terms of benefit, obviously I have from my technical background and my technical community that I represent, it is invaluable to be able to look at what others are doing because we do not have all the answers. And if we want to call ourselves world class, we need to know what the world is doing. That's the way I see it. And so this provides me an opportunity for the world. I love ASCE, I love other organizations, but obviously this one provides me a wider angle. And that's one of the benefits. How I got involved actually is totally ad hoc. It was somebody, a coworker, was a member of the commission. Sandra just, Sunday night came over and said, I think you should write a paper and present it in the next Congress. And it was in Australia. I mean, how could I say no? And so I did it, and I was blown away. And the reason I was blown away, not only because it was in Sydney, it was really because of the quality, the professionalism of that conference, the way it was put together, the quality of the papers, which was superb, and the visits and the tours that were involved with it. I have honestly not been involved in a conference before that was as well put together and as professional as that one, from the social programs to the non-social technical programs, and even the programs for our spouses and so forth. The whole thing was just incredible. And I think from that, the hook was on I was, forever a lifelong member. Over.
Thanks, Jose. Hey, Ron, you want to answer in with how Piank has been impactful for you?
I think my biggest benefit from being involved in Piank in general has been the working groups. One is just the obvious learning opportunity to, as mentioned previously, you learn how the rest of the world approaches some of the same issues that you may be involved with in your career, and that really broadens your horizons. But to me, the networking is key. And to expand on that networking theme, it comes in so many different angles, if you will. One is you learn who is really, really good when you're working on these working groups. I have found great teaming partners for projects around the world through these working groups. I've found great employees, recruiting people from within various working groups, and lots of great friendships and colleagues that you come to know over the years. So I've been involved in working groups continuously for at least 25, 30 years. So lots of different groups. And I find that's the biggest benefit.
And Jim, not to leave you out.
Well, I was, I'd say, ditto to all of the other speakers and their key points. I was probably the latest to the party of anybody on the panel. I came to Washington from Corps District back in 2006 to lead the course navigation program. So as the wide-eyed kid right off the bus, I was looking around and looking at not only a national program, but the national program in the context of the global program. So the opportunity to begin that journey of where we wanted to take the course navigation program during my time, looking at what's world class, and then finding, here was the readily available information. Here were the people that were certainly willing. They basically talked the universal language of dredging and navigation. The fact that they were willing to share their knowledge and expertise. And then I was able to bring that back and working with fantastic people at ERDIC and in the private sector to help develop a lot of the things that we're now seeing taking advantage of technology, whether it's RIS or AIS, maybe my acronym soup. But, there's been just an enormous amount of technology growth. You're back to 15 years ago, BlackBerries and pagers. And now look what we've got. So it was to try and begin to and make sure that we were part of that and applying that technology to get to world class and to try and see how we can implement these things to improve the efforts in the navigation program. So I just, I was hooked from the collaboration that could take place and then being able to bring that back and help work with folks to implement this.
Thank you, Jim. So just to close out, the answer I can give to the question as well. My trajectory has been a little bit different from Piank. I had the opportunity of becoming involved with Piank very early in my career as a member of a committee who actually started the Young Professional Commission. And so, just to age myself just a little bit. But the nice thing on that is, although my training is I'm an engineer by training and very technical, through Piank, I've actually been able to do a lot more planning and things on the more non-technical side of things, which I've really enjoyed. And my experiences with Piank has put me in contact with people who are leaders and experts in the field when I was just young and fresh-eyed, fresh out of college, and being able to meet those people and engage with them worldwide has been a really amazing experience for me. So I appreciate all of y'all's time. And I think we actually went over. I was actually incredibly impressed that Joe was keeping everybody on task today. But I'm going to turn it back over to Joe. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Joe, for your additional questions. And we look forward to seeing everybody at a Piank conference soon.
All right. I echo Jessica's comments and thank the 4 panel members for your candid responses today and Jessica for moderating. Got to energize people to ask questions out there. That's important. But I thought we had a very good discussion. So as we get ready to close out, we're going to recognize some people for their accomplishments. We got these working group certificates. These are being presented to members of PIANC USA who have who participated in a PIANC working group that completed and published a document. So I know it's a little hard, how your screen looks like, but we have these certificates that look like this, and you can see they have the PIANC USA coin on the bottom, and they're great. They're very nice. I think they'll look good on your wall, and I hope that you use them as conversation pieces to encourage others to become involved with PIANC working groups. So that's part of the motivation for doing this. There are 67 that have been awarded in the last 4 months. Next slide, please. And they're going from 2016 up through 2020. And the names are listed. Some of the people were presenting or participating in today's session, and I thank each of you for your contributions. But we're just disappointed that we were unable to invite you in person to make the presentations because of the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, but that's just where we are. So I want to thank everybody. We have mailed these certificates, all but one, the one that I just showed you. And out of all 60-something that we sent, only 2 were damaged. One of them turned out okay. The other one that got an interesting note back from UPS that said, completely destroyed, no pieces remain. You did not pack it well enough. And I finally just decided what that meant was either they drove over it in the truck or they just completely lost it and told us we didn't pack it well enough. But anyway, we replaced it and all is well. So for these 67 people, I want to extend my thanks. I also want to extend the thanks of Mr. James, who served as the chair of the board, John Graham as president, all the commissioners, everyone involved. Our thanks for your contributions in time, effort, and expertise to make these publications and these products available. So a round of applause. It's all silence because you're muted, but nonetheless, thank you for your contributions. The next slide, we will have some special recognitions. These are for people who have contributed to the PIANC USA effort. Andrea Vetteri served 4 years as the YPCOM co-chair and preceded Matt. And we're going to send her a small token of our appreciation for her contributions and thank her for all her effort. Brian Lee served as the former deputy secretary, the job Kayla currently has, and Rachel Grandpree was my predecessor as the secretary. And they did great work. They both did a lot more work. Kayla does all the work now. I just sort of show up. But nonetheless, it's a great effort. It takes a lot more than their duty time. And in their recognition, we gave them a little token. Again, we can't present it, so I'll just show you on the video. It's really classy when I just hold it up in front of the camera, but you get the idea. So we'll be presenting that to Rachel, Brian, and Andrea. Next slide. And we also want to recognize those who have completed their terms recently or will be completing their terms in the very near future as members of the Board of Commissioners. Excuse me. Ed Smeltz, who's on the line today, also served as co-chair of COCOM, was commissioner for 8 years starting in 2012. And for each of the commissioners, we present a silver medallion with their names inscribed on the back. And it is a coveted silver medallion, I should add. And it comes in a nice display case that you can put out there. But it truly is a very small token of all their contributions serving as commissioners. And Ed, I want to thank you very much for all that you have done and continue to do in support of Piank and Piank USA. We also are making a presentation to Michael Leone, retired director of Massport, and he will be receiving a similar silver medallion. Ed, did you want to say something? I didn't. I should have paused, but I didn't.
No, Joe. Thanks. Just thank you. Appreciate your work.
I appreciate that. Michael Leone is a retired director of Massport, as I mentioned. Michael, did you have anything you would like to offer as we? Okay. And finally, Nick Panzik, who you just heard from is on our panel, is the Vice President of Stantec, and he will be completing his term this summer. So to our three commissioners who are stepping down after completing their 2 terms, I thank each of them for their service and for all that they have done to support the Piank effort. I believe that brings us to the end of our presentations. We do have closing remarks from General William Butch Graham, who is our president of the Piank USA board. General Graham, I think I saw you online. I'm just going to check to make sure you're there. Might be on mute. It's not there now. Looks like he dropped off. So, yeah. That's disappointing. So I thought he was going to be here. But I haven't gotten in it. Let me just check. See if I got the message. I haven't. Okay. So,
good afternoon, sir. This is Captain Hunter. I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
So sorry, the mute was disabled, so I wasn't able to raise my hand and speak up. General Graham is with the chief. They are still working through the Prado Basin Chief's Report signing process right now. He may be a few minutes late. He had asked me to pass along that if you can make the closing marks on his behalf, he'd greatly appreciate that. He wanted to apologize to all of the members and the commissioners that had joined for today, and I appreciated them taking the time from their day to make this truly possible, this event.
Okay. Captain Hearn, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And he's talking to his boss, the Chief of Engineers. So that's the way we'll end up today. I don't have much more to say. I've had my opportunity to talk throughout the day today, and I just want to thank all of you for your participation. I will go to Mr. Leffler, who was online just a second ago, and ask if you have any closing comments.
Well, first I have to say is that I appreciate very much the kind invitation for this event. I have had the opportunity just to feel how the U.S. section sees Piank, how the U.S. section is committed with Piank, with a very successful outcome, and I have to say that I will be always available to the U.S. section for any of the initiatives you want to take ahead. You have all my support and all my willingness to be with you in this wonderful trip of Piank. I think the commissioners define perfectly the same sensations we all have when we are in this association.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir, and I appreciate you participating today. It was very special to have you share, the Piank perspective on where we are, how we dealt with the pandemic, and how we're moving forward. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And
I also, one other person, as I look through the list here is Rachel Grandpree, who we are giving a special recognition to. Rachel, did you have any closing comments you would like to add?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're on mute now, though. We could hear you before.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I think I hung up my phone as soon as I tried to unmute it by accident. Hello, no, I just want to comment that it's great to see this annual meeting coming to life virtually. I know it's something we talked about quite a bit when I was taking the reins over from Ann Can. So it excites me to see it come to life. I'm honored to be recognized today, and I like to see a lot of the things that I was starting to get funneled up and coming forward, such as the Piank Americas conference and whatnot. So it's exciting to see all the developments coming to fruition, even despite COVID maybe delaying a few of them.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will, not because I'm trying to drag it out, I want to be sure I do not miss anyone. Are there any comments or remarks that anyone else would like to make at this time? Okay. I thank Kayla Waltermeyer for making this possible and flipping the slides and everything else behind it. And with that, we'll declare this annual meeting closed, and it is a success. Yay. So thank you very much. You all have a great day. And Mr. Leffler, you have a good night.